At least 1,000 refugees are detained in Malaysia as Thailand launches a crackdown on human trafficking. The refugees arrived in several boats off the coast on Monday. There's been a recent increase in refugees leaving Myanmar and Bangladesh for wealthier neighboring countries. Authorities say Thailand is usually the first stop for most refugees, who are then trafficked by smugglers to their destinations. But with the ongoing crackdown, refugees are using any means to leave their countries. For more on the migrant crisis across the Mediterranean, we're joined now by Kathleen Newland. She's the co-founder of the Migration Policy Institute. There, she directs a program on migrants, migration and development, and leads refugee protection work. Well, you heard what Leland Tam was saying. Trying to destroy this business model, is that the best approach?
Well, it's one approach, and I think one of the things that we really have to realize about this is there's no one answer to this crisis in the Mediterranean or indeed in seas around the world. Going to be a lot of moving parts to any solution, which includes cracking down on the smugglers, but also has to include opening some greater legal routes for people to move. Their labor is in demand in a lot of the destination countries, and many of them, probably half of those we're seeing in the Mediterranean, have very valid claims to refugee protection in other countries. So to say that there's just sort of one answer is kind of an illusion.
And those claims are that they have legal claims, you say?
Yes, I mean, about a third of the people who've been crossing the Mediterranean are fleeing the civil war in Syria. And
which was my point. I wanted you to say that because clearly the United Nations being asked to try and settle the problem, but when you get at the root cause of this, it's been at their doorstep for some time now, and they've failed to take any action, haven't they?
And I think the EU's foreign policy chief acknowledged that today when she said that the EU was finally ready to do its part, and she literally used that word. But she said that there would have to be three elements to their approach. One would be cracking down on the smugglers, that is the security approach. One would be the humanitarian approach, which is giving shelter to the refugees. And the other would be trying to tackle the root causes. Well, that third thing is going to be a very long-term proposition. It's not just the war in Syria, but repression in many countries in Africa, and of course, desperate poverty.
And Libya's reaction to this proposal, they generally are not very excited about it. That's kind of a sticking point as well, correct?
It is, and of course, there is no government in Libya, or I should say there are at least two governments who are very much at odds with each other. So finding who the person is who can deliver cooperation on the ground is going to be very difficult. The UN, the International Organization for Migration, and others have been talking with mayors and sort of local authorities who at least may be able to exert some influence on what's happening on their doorstep.
Can you frame this crisis for us? Because we're spending a lot of time talking about the situation in Europe, but now we're also seeing one in Asia. I mean, up to 1,000, perhaps 1,600. Yes. Talk to us about what's leading that move, and why are these folks on the boats trying to get away, and how would you compare it with what we're seeing here?
Well, it's the same dynamic, although it's not the same numbers that we're seeing in the Mediterranean. But in the Bay of Bengal, for the last several years, there's been an outflow, particularly of people who are from the Muslim minority in Burma. Burma is Myanmar is a Buddhist country, and there's a strong sort of Buddhist nationalist movement which has been attacking and repressing these Muslim minorities in the west of Burma, who were very poor to begin with, and their villages have been burned, their people have been confined to camps which are in very, very poor conditions, both in Burma, and those who tried to cross the border into Bangladesh have also been in very dire circumstances in camps. So they're trying to get to Malaysia or Indonesia or someplace where they might be able to make a living and escape this repression that they've been subject to.
We're just about out of time, but quickly, this is going to go on for some time, I guess, on both fronts. You take it? Is that how you see it?
I do, and when you think back to, after the Vietnam War, when we really started getting serious about doing something about the boat people, it took 10 years, a lot of different actors, and a very concerted effort to stop those boats in a way that was fair and humane and resulted in a long-term solution. That's what we're going to have to look for today as well.
Kathleen, always a pleasure having you on the broadcast. I suspect you'll be back because this isn't going away anytime soon. Thank you.
Very nice to be with you.